Day 2 of the Stanley Cup Playoff saw domination. It was very one-sided on the first 2 games of the slate. One team controlled the pace. But then comes the late game, where it's essentially the only interesting game of the slate. The road to the Stanley Cup continues to get paved, although of unsuspecting curves. The Devils are already dealing with the loss of Jack Hughes for the rest of the season, and they've already ruled that Jonas Siegenthaler is doubtful for the series. Special teams were carrying New Jersey on the way to the playoffs since Hughes went down, and the triage already saw its fair share of checkups. Expectations for them were already low to begin with, but after this game... oh dear God! Just when you think the bad injury luck can't get any worse, it does! Brendan Dillon blocked a shot and took an awkward fall, was lost for the game with an undisclosed lower body injury. Dillon tried to return, but doctors deemed the injury was bad enough for him to be held out. Luke Hughes and Cody Glass were both injured on the same defensive shift. Hughes was banged up earlier in that period where he clutched his upper body, and while he fought for the pain, Glass wasn't as lucky. He was slashed by his own goalie. Yes, Jacob Markstrom slashed Glass when he attempted to do that to Andrei Svechnikov, and it cost the Devils their third-line center. Oh my goodness. And if that's not bad enough, you get to the game result. It was total domination. The Hurricanes gave the Devils absolutely nothing. There was no room for New Jersey to maneuver at all. And when there even was room, those chances were very few and far in between. Nico Hischier had the only New Jersey goal, but that was it. A post shot that went by Freddie Anderson, who needed to deliver a solid game. And he did answer that call. He didn't need to do too much in the first period, but there were times in this game where it looked like it was back to Anaheim vintage, including a huge stick save in the third period on Timo Meier, with Meier cutting to the net off a rebound. That game was an offensive explosion by Carolina. Logan Stankoven, the main centerpiece of the return package from the second Mikko Rantanen trade, fired 2 snipes for his 2 goals. The first on a feed from Jordan Martinook after Martinook recovered a loose puck that was broken up by Hischier, and the second on a cross-ice pass from Taylor Hall on the power play. That power play goal was badly needed because Carolina's man advantage units have taken huge hits from last season's numbers, especially in the second half of the season. Not to mention Jalen Chatfield's opening goal in the first frame. Greasy goals are the name of the playoffs, and his shot went through a log jam at the front of the net with the setup from Carolina's fourth line. The 4-1 final score was deceiving because the Canes dominated the game. They outshot the Devils 25-24 and repeatedly punched them in the mouth. If the injury reports don't come out positive for the Devils, an already long series is about to get even longer. Ouchies. It's just the first game of the Battle of Ontario, but the Maple Leafs are starting out on the right side. But whether you are a devoted fan of the Leafs or a devoted hater of this team, we can all agree on one thing. These are not the same old Leafs. They're not built like the teams that had constant playoff disappointments in the first 8 years of the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era. The Leafs prioritize grit and sandpaper over the flashy highlights, going from an East-West team to a North-South team. Their best regular season goaltending of the salary cap era and the under-the-radar analytics, while not favoring them, Brad Treliving prioritized the Leafs to be built for April and May. What we saw from them was all the things they've been missing in the previous playoff runs in the last 8 years. The funny part is, for all the talk about the defense, that wasn't the biggest concern about them in last year's 7-game exit to the Boston Bruins. It was that the goal scoring went dry. But this time, the Leafs were the aggressor from the opening faceoff and were raucous on the forecheck. Oliver Ekman-Larsson got them on the board first as he got a feed from Scott Laughton and fired a wrister past Linus Omar. Many have dogged the core 4 for disappearing in the big games. Mitch Marner's under a lot of pressure than any other player because this is a contract year for him. Austin Matthews immediately finds him for a breakaway, gloving the puck down and then getting the breakout pass. Marner made no mistake doing the rest. The power play lit the left twice in a second. The first with John Tavares grabbing his own rebound off William Nylander's tip, and Nylander fired a shot across his body low blocker side on a 5-on-3 after Tavares face-off win. And for good measure, Matt Nyes made sure to get a third power play goal when he shoveled a loose puck to the top of the crease in the third period. They had more power play goals in this game than they had all series against the Bruins last year, where they went a sorrowful 1 of 21 through 7 games. This is the first time they scored 3 power play goals in a playoff game since Game 1 of the 1999 Eastern Conference Finals. Toronto had their fair share of heart attacks in past years. This game was no exception when Drake Batherson fought off Morgan Riley to get a rebound off Dylan Cousins' shot. Anthony Stolarz would get the last laugh in the end when he robbed Brady Tkachuk on a breakaway, and Shane Pinto from point blank. Ridley Gregg narrowed the deficit to 4-2 in the third when he cleaned up another Stolarz rebound given up. But even when shutout bids are ruined, Stolarz has the ability to bounce back, and that he did. And Morgan Riley answered 45 seconds later with a seeing eye shot that bounced off Matthew Highmore's stick. But it wouldn't be the Battle of Ontario without any chippiness. There were no penalties in the first period, which is insane to think about. But Gray cross-checked Tavares on the face, and controversially, the major penalty was reduced to a minor penalty. Ottawa lost their cool way too many times. They got bit by unnecessary penalties all around the game. And then you have the usual Battle of Ontario antics and major scuffles by the end. For all the talks about the discipline, the Sens were solid at 5-on-5, and the trajectory of this game might have been different with a few saves from Omar at timely chances. But also, keep your cool. Brady Tkachuk was the dominating force. Gray got under Toronto's skin, but the Leafs showed what they needed to do. The lights weren't too bright. The star players delivered. They looked confident. It's the first game, but the Leafs know what they're going to do moving forward. The headliner for the late game was Zeev Buium making his NHL debut. Hey, Charlie McAvoy made his NHL debut with the Boston Bruins in the playoffs in 2017, and that's turning out well for them. Buium was just playing in the Frozen Four of Denver University just 10 days ago before becoming the first Wild player to make his NHL debut in the playoffs. You want to know Vegas' reaction to all of that? That's a nice debut you have there, Zeev. It would be a shame if someone were to spoil it. Surprisingly, the game was rather competitive on a day in which it featured dominating victories by the Canes and the Leafs. The first period showed exactly that, a close game. Tomas Hertl and Matt Bodie took turns exchanging goals, with Hertl lifting Brock Faber's stick and roofing a shot bottom left circle, and Bodie going 5-hole on his after getting a cross-ice feed from Kirill Kaprizov. And people need to remember that the Wild were once one of the best teams in the league at the first half of the season, with Kaprizov destroying worlds. Sadly, the season was derailed by injuries, countless injuries, including to Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek. When they both went down, Minnesota's season went on a tailspin, which showed how valuable the two were to the team. And when they both came back, they had to remind everyone exactly that. In fact, it was Eriksson Ek who tied their final game of the regular season with 22 seconds left against Anaheim to get a point and quit their spot. And Bodie, who tied this game at 1, scored the overtime winner for Minnesota in that exact game at the final game of the regular season. We'll get to him later again, because what needs to mention is Vegas' power play. That unit is the best in the league, despite several teams testing the top spot, including Winnipeg and New Jersey. But Vegas showed their Boy, I didn't mean like that. That was a complete accident by Brett Howden when he battled for a loose puck in the offensive zone, and accidentally hit Lines and Brian Pasich in the head. I hope that Pasich is okay, and that the injury is not serious. It's tough transitioning from this topic to the on-ice product, but continue for what I was saying, Vegas showed their might on the man advantage when Shea Theodore faked the slapper and deferred to Pavel Dorofeev, opening up the net for him to roof a one-timer from the right circle. And ironically, it was how to make it a 2-goal lead for Vegas on the 3-on-2 rush, with Nick Waugh setting him up as he was blazing down the near side of the ice and scored short side. But Bodie, who I mentioned earlier, made sure there was fight in Minnesota in the third. After Aiden Hill stops Kaprizov's shot from the right circle, a bouncing rebound came to Bodie at the goal line away from the net near side, and he took that up for a backhand opposite side on a wraparound he tucked through to cut it within 1. We're not going to get this twisted. The two teams were evenly matched in this game, and while the shot board had a 27-20 Vegas advantage, Minnesota had some good looks throughout the game, and 25 of their shot attempts were blocked. That's stingy defense by Vegas, but the Wild out-hit the Knights 54-29 throughout the game, showing how tough they are as a team. But the one thing you never want to do is take a penalty late in the game when trailing and you need a goal to force overtime. In a game that only saw 3 penalties, that one by Bodie was the worst. Easiest tripping call, that's going to get called all day. Two things can be true. Bodie was the driving force keeping the Wild in this game. Bodie was also the one who cost the Wild a chance at the win. Vegas made sure to deny Minnesota any chance, with Howden scoring a buzzer-beating empty net goal by just 1/10 of a second across the net. This was a good game. Minnesota was knocking right on Vegas' doorstep to truly test them, but that was an awful way to lose for the Wild. To talk about Boldy's performance, you have to talk about him being Jekyll and Hyde in this game. Some may say that the Wild missed out because there was no call on Nick Hague's cross-check on Ryan Hartman in the face, but we never knew that truly impacted the game. The fact is, Vegas had their skill players being on the right side of things in a postseason game, while the Wild didn't do anything outside of 2 Boldy goals. Minnesota had a chance to take advantage of a Vegas PK that was a weakness, but didn't do anything with it. Only 2 of the Wild's top-end players came through, Boldy and Kaprizov. The other lines need to step up if Minnesota wants to make this an entertaining series. So far, Vegas has the early edge, especially Howden, who never had a double-digit goal season before he had 23 this year. Insane to think about, but it talks about next man up, and Howden and Dorofeyev are the beneficiaries of next man up in Vegas.